I guess I got the memo as well, because ampersand yesterday, Justin presented about myths. So we're going to talk about the 3 myths in OTT advertising. I promise this is different material, so different myths. So that's one thing. The other thing is I have some things that I think some people will disagree with, or at least look at the data, squint to see where the sources are, and hopefully have some discussion, because we have enough time for discussion at the end. And the other part, like ampersand being unwired network, analytics, et cetera, Tubi is a consumer entertainment app. So we're a publisher, and there aren't that many publishers in the room. So first, before we get into the myths, which kind of goes through that lens, I'll talk about just my journey to Tubi and the journey of Tubi, because it's interesting and how then we're presenting here today. So my background, my journey is I started as part of the founding team at a company called TubeMogul. We were video analytics and content distribution, and then in 2009 we launched the first DSP for video advertising. And as part of that, we're looking at all forms of video, and in 2011 and 12 started getting into the connected TV space, early days for that. And then also in 2000, around 13, 14, we started doing cross-screen planning. In fact, I think we launched it with Magna, and there's some people from Magna here. And then in 2016, we got acquired by Adobe, and that was part of the Adobe Ad Cloud. And even though we had been working in connected TV from 2011 and 12, it was really a pivot point in 16 into 17 when people actually started buying it. Before that, it was always, people didn't really want to buy it. It would be value add and test environments. But that really changed in 2017, as now I was part of the Adobe Ad Cloud team. And within the platform, I could see volumes, and I could see Tubi just outsized in comparison to even large networks, which was really impressive. And so I was attracted to this job that started just under 2 years ago, so January of 2018. So that's my path, but that path really was in parallel and commingled with the Tubi story, which, that 2011 and 12 time frame, Tubi's precursor, the company was called AdRise. And AdRise launched as being, well, they wanted to be the first dedicated connected TV ad server. And so the founders went to studios and media companies and said, the future of TV is in apps, it's streaming, and we're the only ones focused on this environment, so use us for your ad serving. And the response was, well, we don't know if that's the future, and if it is, when, and is it ad-supported or subscription? And even if we did want to do it, we'd have to build apps for all these different platforms. There's Samsung, there's Xboxes, there's this new thing called Roku, and we have to do deals with all those, so no thanks. And as good entrepreneurs, they said, what if we build and maintain the apps for you across all the platforms? We give you analytics, we give you content management tools, and we do the transcoding, and we give you the ad tech, so ad serving, and we help you monetize. And that was a really good deal. And they had about 200 clients, Discovery, Stars, some other studios like Jim Henson Studios. And so that was a business that was rolling. But they realized that a couple things. One, people didn't want to download dozens of apps to get the content they wanted. And two, they were getting the sense that these studios, they don't really know how to market these apps. Like many of you who are in the business of DTC, and some of you might be in the app business, the AdRise folks recognized they could use the analytics, make decisions better and faster, and do it in a different way than the studios would, and really focus the analytics on user experience. So that was the focus. And so then over the next 4 years, just grew to be number one. In fact, number one downloaded app, free movie and TV app on pretty much every platform for 4 years in a row through 2018. And that growth has continued. So we announced, I think, a couple weeks ago, kind of the number of hours of streaming for September. It was 132 million. What's relevant is that's a 40% increase since May. So we continue to just see this hockey stick growth. So that's a little bit of the background and history, a little bit more about Tubi. You know, that brings us to our size as being the largest and fastest growing free movie and TV app. So it's all movies and TV shows, all studio and network content. We're the largest by a bunch of measures. We're on the distribution side, we're across over 20 different platforms, so all the sticks, Fire Stick, Roku, the gaming consoles, set-top, or some of the smart TVs, Vizio, Sony, Samsung, and even some set-top boxes. So like Xfinity One, X1 for Comcast, Cox Contour, and TiVo. And so that's distribution. Content-wise, over 15,000 titles. So that's about 3x the number of titles of Netflix. And I mentioned the growth in the viewership as it relates to, we announced 20 million monthly active users in June, but even more so for the people in this room that really understand kind of the ad volumes. Well over 2 billion monthly ad opportunities. And that comes at half the ad load of a Hulu or a Pluto that are about 10 minutes. We're about 4 to 5 minutes per hour. So I mentioned some of the content. Again, these are iconic brand names in terms of the studios and networks that we work with. So with that, I'll jump into some of the myths. So first myth, viewers prefer an ad-free experience. Okay, no scoffs. That was kind of clickbaity, I think. I tee it up and say, you know, Netflix has changed the game, right, in terms of streaming and the expectation of a subscription with no ads. I mean, HBO many years before, but they really changed the game. And so many of us, I think, even in the media halls, we talk about, oh, you know, people don't want ads, it's going away. But I'll show you it's not. And I guess, you know, the clickbaity part is, well, viewers actually prefer ads if it means no cost or low cost. So 87% in fact, if either free with ads or ads and a low fee versus higher fee with no ads. But you might say, yeah, that's what people want, but is that what the behavior is? I mean, we know Netflix aren't most people doing the reverse. But actually, the data is interesting. IAB had some research this year, said nearly half of connected TV viewers stream ad-supported content more than any other type of streaming. And again, now you might look at the number this and say nearly half. So it was 45%. That still means more are streaming where it's not ad-supported. But this has changed drastically. At TubeMogul, we were doing the analytics still for a company called Brightcove, and we would release research reports, I'd say probably all the way through 2014. But I remember in the 12, 13 timeframe, there was a connected TV report, and I could see the data. There was stuff on connected TV. What we didn't publish was that at the time, I think it was 80% of streaming on connected TVs was Netflix and Pandora. And obviously Pandora's ad-supported, but wasn't video. So there's been a really big shift to get to this 45%, and this is where a lot of the growth is. So I think we don't have to be too worried about a world of no ads. The next myth goes more into some of the buying and planning side, and the myth is FEP networks buys cover OTT audiences. And this room might not feel that that's the case, but I hear it a lot with investment folks, either at accounts or even higher up at the agencies. And there's some data that I want to show, some of which, right here, this actually counters that. This was a surprise to me. So in looking at MRI data from this year, the Chord Evolution study, so I had talked about, look, FEP, these guys are cable subscribers. They have to authenticate for the most part. And so the overlap, like you're not getting cord cutters. And you're overlapping with the buy. But actually, overlap's pretty low when you look at their apps versus their linear network. So they're all around the 30% range. CBS, also, they're the ones that stand out that have their own, the subscription side separate. But so that's interesting. But when you look a little bit further, what does that mean in terms of getting that audience reach? So I guess the first point is, it's good then to do FEP extensions because from an incremental reach standpoint and fluidity in that way. But there's actually been a decline. While OTT has been on a rapid increase, there's actually been a decline in the number of apps, the TV network apps on devices. And this is some TiVo research that shows, and so a lot of this is around 25% declines. And most of the respondents don't use TV network apps at all. And I would love to go back and to ask you guys why you think this might be happening. I have some theories. We can talk about that after. But then, in addition, it's that you're missing out on key viewers. So there's that decline in those apps. So what's the overlap outside? Well, first, SVOD. This doesn't look scary. 76% overlap, but this is SVOD, and most of the Netflix, Amazon Prime, those don't have ads. So if you just take out the Hulu limited commercial subscription portion, 25%. Many people buy FEP extensions and then plus Hulu. So that is lower overlap. When you take all of the free AVOD companies combined, it's 38%. So still pretty low overlap to those apps. And when you look at Tubi by itself, 10%. So when you look at our 20 million plus MAUs, and you're doing an FEP, and even when you plus Hulu, you're missing a large portion of that. So moving on to the next myth, it's OTT ad spend is aligned with consumer time spent. This is one that was at Adweek and some of investment leads at holding companies, and I asked, is there alignment? And they said, absolutely, we're spending as much as the consumer is spending time. So you might align with that or not, but the data overall, and this is from a couple different places, Kantar, Magna, with formerly David Morgan talked about this for 2018. Big difference. And this isn't something this is something we've seen before. It looks a lot like mobile did in 2012, 13. And so the question is, well, I guess first question, guess how long did it take, how many years before when mobile looked like the way it did like this, before there was equilibrium, where the ad spend equaled the time spent? Does anybody have a guess? No. It hasn't been 10 years since it looked like that. It was 2013. So, but if you go max, if it did, it's 2018. So 5 years it took to get equilibrium at 33%. Obviously, the usage kept growing as well. So the big question that I have, and I'll leave with that and then open it up to more questions, is what do you guys think, when will equilibrium happen in OTT? Will it take 5 years? Will it be shorter? And if so, why? Why would it be different than that adoption? Because, going back to that statement, oh, I do invest as much as there is usage, I think a lot of that thinking comes from the fact that, look, this account, as an example, did less than 10% in digital and FEP, and we have helped move the client this year to 30%, so we tripled. But it was starting from such a low base that even if it was doubling every year or tripling for the next several years, it might not get there. So I'll open it up to that question. Who thinks it'll take less than 5 years? Anyone want to make a statement? More than 5 years? More? Okay. Want to share why will it take more?
Hold on, let me get a mic for you here. We're gonna get.
Okay.
Doesn't help. Thank you. I wonder if there's just, to your point, there's just biases in place, right? We've tripled this year, so we're making progress. But the reality is your dollar amount is still underscaled significantly compared to what your investment looks like from a upfront or even a scatter market perspective.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't know the answer. I think there's some pressure that might push it less, given that it's television and the reach problem is very painful. So maybe that will move things. Maybe the fact that TV becomes all digital anyways kind of throws this into a chaos as well. But I don't know. So that's it for the presentation today. Thank you. Any questions, discussion points on this data?
Mark, do you have? Are you solo or do you have a team here?
Oh yeah,
as well?
Peter Grasick is here, our VP of Sales
Yep.
in New York.